Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be talking about the lineups that I'm personally going to be using, mainly for Operation Winter. These are the lineups that I've used for, well, quite a lot of the time, and generally it's gone pretty well with them. I'll also be using some other lineups depending on, when it goes, but these are the general ones to prioritize, at least when it comes to trying to get the general task done. So if you watch the tips and tricks video, the way that I generally approach these things is getting the ground and the aviation stuff done in the same parts and then doing naval by itself. So what we're going to be running is a 3-stack, 2-stack system. Now obviously if you have more vehicles then you can put them into your lineup, but this is always, the general lineup I go with: 3 ground vehicles and 2 aviation vehicles, and I have done for years. So anything on top of this is obviously going to be better for you, but this is the general lineup that we go for. So what you want to have a look at when it comes to your ground lineup, first of all, is you want a main tank you're going to go out first in, you want a secondary main tank or a secondary medium, and then you want an auxiliary tank. So basically you want either 2 mediums and an AA, or 2 mediums and a tank destroyer, or a light tank and 2 mediums, or you want 2 heavies and a light, or you want a heavy, light, and maybe another light or an AA. For the 6-7 lineup for America, the reason why it's such a powerful lineup is because you have a great pick of a ton of vehicles that work really well. So even, by the way, in this video we're disregarding all premiums, so obviously you can put in some either event vehicle or premium ones that you have, but just understand that they can be replaced by, standard Type 3 vehicles. So for the 6-7 lineup for America, you have the heavy tank T-34, which is going to be your main vehicle. Then you have the M56, the T-92, and the M50 as secondary ones. So you can pick 2 of these, whichever ones you find the easiest to do. And depending on the map, you either spawn first in your T-34, if it is a close quarters map where you can utilize the armor and also the gun very effectively. If it is a larger map, or if there's one where you can get a ton of scouts off and a ton of assists, then you bag on either the M56 or the T-92. The reason why the light tanks are important in this lineup is because you are using them not just to get score and win the battle, but also to easily transition into a plane. When it comes to the way that light tanks work, remember that they have the modification airstrike, which makes it easier for you to transition from a light tank into a plane. So that's why you want to use these things. So yeah, if you feel like you want to brawl heavy, obviously you go for the T-34. It's a very formidable vehicle, one of my favorite vehicles overall when it comes to the game. I've done very well in it, along with stuff like the Jumbo. You can see right here, we're nearly a 2-to-1 in it, 50% win rate, and it's only been climbing ever since they changed the daily tasks and the battle task stuff. So with the T-34, it's a great vehicle to go forward with. It can deal with pretty much anything that comes up against it. The only issue you have with it is of course stuff such as heat, but even then you still have a powerful gun to be able to go through pretty much anything. So with the transition, you can either, as I said, play the T-34, or if you decide to go the light tank route straight away to try and get your aviation task going on, what you need to generally do when it comes to the 2 crew slots for your aviation, you want to try and get a CAS aircraft, and then you want an air superiority fighter which also has CAS elements. So the P-51H fits in the 6-7 lineup incredibly well here because of that fact, because of the fact that it has 2 1,000 pounders, and then afterwards it can use its 12.7s to shoot down enemy aircraft or to take out lighter targets. The AD-4 is the full CAS element. It can be useful for stuff which is a little bit, I suppose, a little bit less maneuverable, such as ME-410s and maybe Polkastorus to deal with, but generally this isn't going to be a great fighter against other stuff that's coming in. You also have some other options for America around the BRs. The Mauler is definitely one to look for. The Tiger Cats you can also bring in, I suppose, and then the AD-2 as well if you want to bring that in. So the idea is, if you go early and you get the amount of spawn points possible after playing a light tank to get in a plane, you want to prioritize your AD-4 if if it's early in the game, and the reason for this is because there'll be less AA up, so therefore you'll get a clear run at the targets, meaning that you can annihilate them with the bombs that are going on, and also the rockets. If you are having to spawn in the play mid-game, within the 5 to 10 minute mark, you want to go for the P51H instead, because there will be fighters and other attackers around, so you want to get your bombs off, get a guaranteed kill with those 1000s, and then rat-a-tat with the 12.7 millimeters. And then, depending on what you want to win the mission in, you can transfer back into one of the light tanks or the heavy tank to go ahead. So that's generally how you play the 6-7 lineup. It's very similar to a bunch of the other lineups that we're going to talk about, so use that general template if you're trying to go for aviation and ground force wins, and well, also getting the challenges done. The other two lineups for America are the 5-7 one, which has access to the Hellcat. Even though it got reduced in horsepower, it's still pretty nippy to get around the place, to get your captures done, and also has really good backing from the M36 GMC with the good 90mm, so if you get up-tiered, you'll be able to penetrate anything still and do a ton of damage. And then of course old stable, the 76mm M4A3 with the good stabilizer. This one can and will do well. It's a great vehicle as a backup vehicle, depending on if you want to take the Slugger if you get up-tiered, or the Hellcat if you want to get captures. It's really good at you know, being able to bring in as a secondary or tertiary vehicle. And then once again, air superiority and CAS, so you either want to pick the Mauler or the AD2 to bring in as a 5-7, and then backing that up, you can bring in a P47 if you want. Where did they put it in the tree? The P47N with this lineup, or you can bring the F82 as the air superiority element, or you can even bring in something like the F4U4B if you feel like it. There's a ton of options for CAS for America, and great for chucking them in. The other option that you can go for is the 5-3 lineup, which is obviously jumbos, and then access to the 76 M47 as well. That is something that you can definitely get. So this is basically bully time with the jumbos. The reason why you go 5-3, by the way, I didn't pick these skins. You can blame the Twitch community for this. We have a section on the Twitch channel where if you get enough points, you get to pick which skins that I play on vehicles. So yeah, we have this wonderful one for my unfortunate jumbo. So yeah, if you get up-tiered, then you can use the M4A2 76 with the good old 76 on it to do quite a lot of damage. If you get down-tiered or at your tier, you can play the jumbos, and you can play them incredibly well and go through and attack and do great. The only issue with this lineup is sometimes it can be a little bit not great against enemies if there's a lot of armor on the enemy team, but generally you do okay. Then once again, CAS elements, so air superiority fighter in the form of the P51D30 with the guaranteed bomb drop of the 1000s, and then the P47N, which gives you a little bit more flexibility with the 2 bomb drops, and then air superiority elements after it. So if you feel like you're getting like 2 kills or 3 kills with this thing but can't get the 4 kills, bring out the P47N and be able to get those kills. So that's America when it comes to its ground lineups and aviation lineups. When it comes to naval, the naval lineup I normally use for America has been annihilated, mainly because so many people are running destroyers right now, so I don't recommend playing the 3-0 lineup, the Thunderbolt and the 2 Elcos. I actually recommend going lower to 1.7 and 2.0 and bringing these 4 vehicles, because you need to be rank 2 in naval and that's it. So the lower you go, the better. Get some PT boats, get the torpedoes going, have a bit of fun with them, and then finish stuff off with these things. The destroyers are all over the place for America right now, and a lot of the destroyers will go up against cruisers, which they'll struggle with, especially from rank 2 and above. So yeah, I wouldn't touch them right now. I would touch other nations. The next lineup is the Germans, and the Germans have quite a nice set of lineups too. They have, of course, the 5-3 lineup with the Nashorn, Tiger, and Panther. This is always a nice lineup to play, because on top of the 3 vehicles that you have, you also have access to Oswins, Whirlwinds, Oswin 2s if you want. So then you've got the ME410 B6R3, you've got a bunch of different CAS elements that you can bring in, which work really, really well for the lineup. Then at 6-7, which I believe is this lineup. Yeah, you at 6-7, you also have a pretty solid lineup, even without all of the extra things. You know, you have the Tiger 2H, you can bring in the Bulldog, which is a really good light vehicle. Once you get the Heat FS on it, you can bring in the Ferdinand or the Jagdpanther as support, or the Jagdtiger, the Kugelblitz as well. Remember, air kills, like ground-to-air kills, do count towards your 6, and because a lot of people are going to be flying CAS, it might be worth throwing in something like a Kugelblitz, so therefore you can down a lot of planes. Last time when I was doing these events, one of the big things that I did personally is I would get in an W.I.N.T.E.R, because I needed to spade it, and also it's a 5-3, so you can run it at the 5-3 lineup. And generally what would happen with it is I would shoot down 2 to 3 to 4 planes because there were so many CAS elements, so it just made it a lot easier. So the 6-7 lineup of Kugel, Tiger 2H, and the Bulldog, forget this thing exists because it's terrible, but the Bulldog and these two will work incredibly well. And then of course the CAS elements of stuff like the Pulkistarter, if you want to bring that in, or even the Arado for 2 guaranteed kills, is definitely something to look at. You can even go a little bit lower if you want, with stuff like the Do 335s and the ME410 B6R3. All incredibly good lineups. And there are some other lineups as well. If you want to go for Germany, 9.0 is incredibly strong. Radkampfwagen, Leopard 1A5, Leopard A1A1, and then all of the other machines that are around that BR. Germany is not struggling for lineups all the way through. You could even go 4.0 if you really feel like it with the Panzer 4s, 4.3 with the Ostwind, Jagdpanzer 4 as well, and the Dicker Max, which is always a fun vehicle to use. The other thing as well is for Germany, they do have a really nice rank 2 set of destroyers, which you could throw in, and I need to spade them, so I'm gonna be playing them. Basically at 4-3 with a full lineup of 3 units is just really nice to be able to go. And then you have the Heinkel backing it up with the torpedoes as well, so you can get torpedo kills on enemy destroyers as well. So to me, that is a nice pick. The next thing as well is the rank 2s as well, for Germany in the coastal fleet, so 2.3s and above will work great. For the Soviets, you have a few lineups you can pick from, which are very meta-defining and incredibly good. The first one is the 7-7 lineup, so obviously the 7-7 lineup, 3 T-54s is absolutely stacked, plus the IS-4M, plus the BMP. Then you have also the ZSU-57-2, and that is not even thinking about premiums or anything like that. The 7-7 for the Soviets works incredibly well from the ground, but the air is not too good. They don't have a ton of stuff you can bring for the air, so if you're doing this lineup, you're basically doing sole ground, and that's really about it. And then air superiority fighters, because their CAS elements are just weak at this BR, so it's not going to work too well. So just remember that while you're doing it. There are some other lineups you can run with as well for the Soviets, which I'm personally going to pull out the 5-7 one, so T-3485, IS-2, and then any selection of other machines that you want, such as the IS-1 or the PT-76B. You could even bring in a bunch of CAS elements like the Yak-9T, and the 5-3 one with the T-3485, D5T, the IS-1, and the Su-85M is an insanely good lineup and very, very, very fun to play. Would highly recommend this. And obviously you have the Gold 5-7 lineup as well, if people want to play that. When it comes to their fleet stuff, I would stay away from playing the Soviet fleet unless you are going for this rank 2 2.0 lineup right here. These won't be able to really get torpedo kills because, well, the Soviets really struggle when it comes to torpedoes, but it'll be very good from just doing general damage and also winning the battles. When it comes to Britain, Britain has 2 insanely good lineups. The first one is 7-0. This lineup was 6-7, and they all got moved up to 7-0, and they're all still incredibly good. The Carnarvon as the heavy tank, and then 2 mediums backing it up, the Centurion Mark III, and the FV-4202. It also has access to some really nice CAS in the form of mainly air superiority fighters, with the Meteor F Mark III. This one doesn't get any secondary armaments, but it can command the air incredibly well. You also have the Attacker that you can throw in this lineup, which does have 2 1000s, so should have at least one 1 guaranteed kill. You can't put the Vampire in, unfortunately, which is a pretty good little cast plane as well. You can throw in the Tempest with its bombs. I like running the Spitfire F Mark 24 just because it's a really nice air superiority fighter, and it also gets access to a bomb drop of 3 500-pounders. So that just means that you can get 2 guaranteed bomb drops. If you're good enough to aim them, that could be 2 guaranteed kills. Then all you have to do is get 2 air kills, and there you go. There is your 4 done for the day. So the 7-0 lineup is incredibly strong. APDS, full-on stabilizers, okay armor, and a really good reload and really good gun depression. You can boss the game with these, and since a lot of people are going to be playing 6.3, 6.7, you should be getting down-tiered into them, and a lot of people are going to be playing 8.3, so that will up-tier a lot of the 7.7s and 7.3s that you'll generally fight. When I was playing 6.7 the other day, basically it was just a ton of 7.0s marshalling the battles, including all of these British tanks, so I do really recommend them. There's also the 9.7 lineup. If you have the Harrier, you can throw that in, but the challenges are incredibly powerful. So is the Vickers Mark 7, so you could run that lineup if you have it. It's a little bit high tier though, and the other lineup is of course the 7.7 one. The 7.7 one for the British is kind of insane. The Conqueror, the Vickers MBT, the Centurion Mark 10, but if you're going to replace one of them, I would replace the Centurion Mark 10 with a Falcon, because the Falcon as well is a ridiculous machine. It is more of a TD than anything else, especially with the APDS belts, which pens 110. This thing is a monster when you let it. Then of course you have good cast support from the Vampire, and then other machines if you want to bring them in. The British is another set of vehicles that I would highly recommend looking at for getting your naval tasks done. Tribal N-Class, K-Class, really nice setup, incredibly nice setup for 4.3. And then if you have all of these, guess what, battles you can also research and get them done in. This is probably the main lineup I'm going to be using, because they have torpedoes, you know, they have all of that stuff, which is great. And then they do have aviation elements, which also has torpedoes, stuff like the bow fighter you can bring in and have a bit of fun with its Mark, was that 12 torpedo. Then also you have stuff like some of the premium vehicles like the Hellcat, which will be able to bring it in as well, so that should be really, really fun. Japan is a little bit limited. Pretty much you have the 4.7 lineup, which is the Cheeto Late, and the Chinu 2, but if you don't have the Chinu 2, which is of course the premium one, you could just throw in a Chaffee and use it as a scout. That also works. You could also run 3.3 if you wanted. Chaffee, Nato, so key, but it really isn't exactly great. With the new addition of the STA3, I would definitely say have a look at 6.3 and 6.7 for Japan. Even though these things aren't great stock, when they're spaded they work really well. Good heat slingers, not the best reload, but good gun depression and decent mobility. Obviously at 8.7 as well with the Type 74s. These are incredibly good vehicles. You just got to watch out for people using thermals, because obviously that's quite good for them. Then you got the Type 89 and also the Type 87 to throw into that lineup, so overall it works really well, and you can back it up with some R2Y2s or even something like an F86 Sabre. I would stick to the 4.7 lineup though, and focus on getting the ground test done with this lineup, since the CAS elements that you get with this lineup are pretty trash. The next one is for the naval for Japan. I would stay away from the Blue Water stuff right now. There isn't really a way of creating a decent lineup with any of these ships, apart from the 4.3, if you have the Yugamo, the Udachi, and the Shimakaze, but generally looking at them, you know, you can't really force a normal lineup unless you want to go 5.0 or 5.3 and get shit on by by battleships if you feel like it, which won't be very fun. The coastal fleet is not too much better with the opportunities that they have as well. A lot of these machines don't work too well. They annihilated Japan's lineups by moving a lot of the BRs around, and that's very sad to see. China, there are a bunch of BRs you could play at. 8.0 if you wanted. Type 59s, WZ305, incredibly strong. 7.3s is not too bad once you get them spaded, but 5.7 is the key to China. 5.7, T-3485 Guy, S-53, then you've also got the Fong Kong, the M36 as well, you've got the PT-76 if you're a masochist, you've also got the M18 and the IS-2. It's got every single option in the book, and 5.7 China is amazing for it. And then it also has some really good cast support as well, the P51K with a guaranteed good bomb drop, and then the TU2, if you get in it early or to finish off a game, you get tons of bombs with this thing. You get 2 500 kilos and 1 1000, and they drop independently, so this is 3 separate bomb drops with the TU2S. That is incredibly impressive, that is incredibly useful, and great for getting those 4 kills which you need in order to, you know, get the air challenge done. So 5.7 China is amazing. It's overlooked by a lot of people, but it is really good. When it comes to Italy, there isn't too much on offer apart from the 7.7 lineup of the OF40 R3T106 FA and also the M47. The R3T106 FA, you can run around the place and do a great job with it, scouting or just taking out a lot of enemies. You also have stuff like the M47 to back up your OF40, OF40 being your main tank, of course. If you have the HVG, you can throw that in. If you got the M60 Ariete, you can throw that in. Or you can be a degenerate and run around with a 5.7 or 5.0 lineup with the M18, Sherman 5C, and of course the R3T20, and throw down its and make its win rate even lower than it actually is. So yeah, that is definitely something that you could do with those machines. When it comes to Blue Water and the Coastal Fleet, unfortunately, there isn't really any lineups you can go with the Italians. They definitely struggle, apart from maybe the 1.7 one with the Stefano Tor, the MS-53 and the MS-15, but that's still really rough. For France, there are 2 designated lineups. So you got 3.7 with the ARL-44 ACL-1 M4A4, and then AMX-13 FL-11. If you don't want to throw in one of these light vehicles, there is also another M4 Sherman you can put in this lineup, but this lineup is really good. Works incredibly well, and it's one of the low BR lineups that you can take at 3.7. So that's going to work insanely well for you, and you stay away from that 5.7, 6.7 area, which is scary for a lot of people because a lot of people are going to be playing it. Then also, you do have backup of the MB175T. This machine is overlooked quite a lot, but it is a decent twin-engine air superiority fighter, and it does also get access to HVARs, so you can use them if you want on the ground target, or you can use it as a weird pseudo air superiority fighter. And then you have the air superiority fighter, which is of course the MB157. If you want to go a little bit up in BR, like if you want to go to 4.7 with the SA-50 or the Jumbo at 5.3, you also can add in the King Cobra and also the F6F5N, which are really good options. Then if you want to go up even more in BR, you can go to 6.7 and you can get a ridiculous lineup for the French. You get the AML-90 if you want it. You do have other options from the AML-90 at 6.7, or at least you used to. Maybe not. Well, I suppose the CA Lorraine or the AMX-13 if you feel those are better. But you also have one of the best light tanks, if not the best light tank at the BR, the Char-25T, and the AMX M4 as a medium to back it up, which is an insanely good vehicle too. On top of these, you have 2 great options of CAS. You have either the F4U7 with its 114 snebs. If you get in this thing early in the game, you will absolutely clap. And then, if you don't in that, you can just use the Sky Raider instead as like both of the slots. Or you can use a superiority fighter in the form of the F8 F1B, and this machine does have access to a bunch of bombs in the form of 3 1,000 pounders. So you can get 2 guaranteed kills if you know what you're doing with this thing, which is a pretty nice, it's a pretty nice scenario with it. Once again, I didn't pick the skins. So this lineup is probably one of my favorite in the game. I'm probably going to be running it a lot as well, just to be able to do well. The 7.7 lineup for France is also very good. The AMX-30 1972, 40T2, the Lorraine 40T, MX 1390 as backup, or the Surbasse if you want to bring that big one in, and then you can just run the same CAS aircraft as well. Sweden kind of struggles a little bit when it comes to these lineups, generally because of the fact that it doesn't have very defined lineups at a lot of tiers apart from top tier. So you can run the 401 PVKV2 and then the PVKV M43 at 40. You can run it with the A21A3 and the J21A2, have an air superiority fighter, and then obviously a CAS aircraft, which also is an air superiority fighter. But I like running the 7-7 lineup personally with the STR-V101, the STR-V103, and the UDES. But the main thing about this lineup is obviously the CAS elements, the A21RB. It has centrally mounted rockets right here, the M49As, and because they're centrally mounted, it's really easy to hit them. They also shoot near enough individually, so therefore it's really easy to hit people with these rockets. I would highly recommend giving them a go. They're a lot of fun. And then obviously the J29 is the air superiority fighter. But this lineup is a little bit jank. I would say go for the nations instead of that lineup. Sweden is definitely one which is struggling a little bit for lineups right now, but it works okay. So yeah, those are the main lineups I'm going to be using for this event. As I said, use the templates that I talked about in this lineup here, the 671 for America, and you won't go too far wrong. If you have any additional questions or if you have any additional thoughts, make sure to hit up the Twitch channel and I can have a look at them, answer them if you need any help. The event starts tomorrow. Good luck everybody. I'm sure everything will go very well. See you later. Have a lovely time. I'd just like to thank John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez B. Young, and also Hans Fagellen, Sebastian Mizon, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.